Hey folks, welcome to another video. Did you know that during the 1980s, FIFA was one of the best known, most loved, respected, and most trusted international organizations? Thousands of FIFA executives have already been arrested for fraud, racketeering, and money laundering since 2022, making FIFA one of the world's most corrupt, criminal, and hated organizations. Large-scale protests are currently breaking out all across the world in opposition to the 2022 World Cup, raising the issue. Why did FIFA reputation suffer such a dramatic decline? A huge number of people around the world love FIFA because of its sponsorship of the World Cup. They used to be one of the most trusted and well-respected brands in sports. As the world's most popular sport, FIFA was synonymous with its name. This is the most controversial World Cup in history because FIFA made many mistakes, and that's the keyword, and we're going to outline them all. In order to understand how FIFA went from just being a simple soccer organization to becoming one of the most corrupt political organizations in the world with more power than governments. The first part of FIFA transition was to get involved with corrupt regimes, and this is not something new. Authoritarian regimes have always used sports as a means of legitimizing their rule. In 1978, FIFA showed for the first time that sports could be a powerful propaganda tool for a country. They legitimized the government and generated tremendous wealth for it. As you know, Argentina's democratically elected government was overthrown by the military just 2 years before this World Cup, leading to a new national reorganization process, or in other words, a fascist dictatorship. George Rafael Videla wanted to whitewash and gain popular support by using the World Cup. By using the World Cup, the government was legitimized, millions of people flocked to his country, and the regime was strengthened. As a result of this World Cup, the reputation of the theater was tarnished due to FIFA's role in its propaganda. However, to be fair, at the time, this wasn't as bad as many people thought it would be for FIFA. There were not many outrages or impacts as a result of this. At the time, FIFA had such a strong reputation that people were willing to overlook its shortcomings, because it was one of the biggest catalysts behind the growth of football, and FIFA wasn't just growing this reputation from the World Cup alone. In fact, the World Cup was only one part of a when FIFA was so famous starting over 100 years ago. FIFA slowly spread the good world of football across the globe, and as football got more and more successful, so did FIFA. Over time, their name came to represent the activity and everything associated with football. You might be sure FIFA had something to do with it. FIFA was one of the most popular video games ever made, and for decades and decades, people loved and respected FIFA just as much as they did the game itself. FIFA established football as a global sport, introducing billions of people to it. As the sport's governing body, FIFA made sure that everyone could enjoy it. But in order to help them maintain their positive reputation and significant development and expansion, they require marketing. Since consultants were cunning business people who knew how to turn a profit, this breakthrough would propel FIFA business to incredible heights. Trust me when I tell you that what happened in the years that followed was so stunning that it's hard to comprehend and understand why I need to introduce you to the man behind this. It would also be the major item that would damage the FIFA name forever. Sepp Blatter, who was at the top of this system, who turned FIFA into an organization infamous for fraud, money laundering, and corruption. For the entirety of his career, Blatter gave the impression that he could do no wrong. FIFA was in the midst of a golden era when Blatter took office in 1998, and for many years it appeared like he would maintain the trend. However, Sepp Blatter was not acting alone. He had a large group of allies and subordinates who collaborated with him to further FIFA objectives. However, it wasn't only FIFA interests at stake. Blatter was also using FIFA as a means of generating income for himself, which raised rumors of bribery and corruption. However, given his position of authority and FIFA's stellar reputation, these allegations were mostly ignored. However, there's nearly always some truth to rumors, and in 2006, this was revealed. You can see that investigative journalist Andrew Jennings published this book, The Secret World of FIFA, when FIFA's reputation began to suffer. The controversies involving bribes, vote reading, and tickets led to all kinds of shady transactions and corruption inside FIFA power structure. A special broadcast from the PPC that highlighted this and other newly released information was subsequently broadcast in response to this. FIFA was now in hot water because Sepp Blatter was under investigation for a covered agreement to pay back more than £1 million in bribes that other football executives had collected. But then a curious thing happened. Suddenly, the river of league-related crimes and accusations that I had been hearing dropped to a trickle, and it appeared like all of these stories were untrue. People didn't take FIFA-alleged corruption seriously since it wasn't widespread, and Blatter and his associates appeared to have gotten away with nothing because the public's perception of them was still as positive as ever. FIFA carried on as usual since it just felt like a few bad apples were ruining the lot. It was a FIFA game explosion. It was the most watched World Cup ever, and FIFA was pressuring almost all international leaders to show respect. By this time, FIFA really had more members than the UN, and they alone determined which country would host the next World Cup. As FIFA grew more influential, its officials began to understand how much power they actually possessed. FIFA had become unstoppable thanks to these mysterious businessmen, and everything appeared to be going according to plan. But these guys want more than simply the success of FIFA. They desire personal power, and we have previously seen the enormous influence that the World Cup can have on propaganda and public opinion. However, it also provided whoever owned it with a very valuable source of income. The amount of tourism the World Cup brings in should not be underestimated. In fact, the amount of tourism alone easily covers the expense of hosting the FIFA World Cup, which is why nations bid to host it. Not to mention that hosting the World Cup frequently results in the host nations winning again, boosting their prestige. The reputation of the host nation at this moment, FIFA had unquestionably gained tremendous influence over nations thanks to its long history and solid reputation. You would anticipate FIFA to act honorably and appropriately in its position of authority. FIFA, therefore, had enormous influence over the world. The political games surrounding the World Cup were massive, and nearly every nation participated, including the UK, Japan, the USA, South Korea, and the list goes on. The voting for the following host nation would involve all the world's leaders. The 2010 World Cup in South Africa had been greeted with broader claims, and FIFA had been making a fortune from the sale of rights and merchandising. FIFA appeared to be in unshakable financial shape. And this competition only strengthens the job that FIFA has been undertaking for years when the public was ignorant of the true FIFA and its budget was drying up. When FIFA astonished everyone by awarding the 2018 World Cup to Russia and the 2022 World Cup to Qatar, it looked as though nothing could go wrong. This was true up until a few months after the 2010 World Cup. It was logical to deny Russia the World Cup. It is still somewhat debatable, although Russia has a lengthy history of football and has previously participated in numerous World Cups. The claims against FIFA in 2006, however, sparked speculation that Russian oil and gas money may have played a part in this choice. However, Qatar was the main issue for FIFA since it was chosen to host despite having no history with football and no connection to the sport in any way. Even FIFA, which could not come up with a single compelling justification for why they should host the World Cup, explained why Qatar was a poor choice in their own paperwork for doing so, yet inexplicably FIFA voted in favor of choosing them. There were numerous issues, the most obvious of which was the Middle Eastern country's typically hot and dry climate. In the summer, temperatures in Qatar frequently exceed 75 degrees or 115 Fahrenheit, and given how physically and mentally taxing professional football is, there was simply no way the cup would be held in the summer. Therefore, winning the competition was necessary, but that decision also had drawbacks. First of all, it overshadowed all other competitions, including international and regional leagues, and broke a nearly 100-year tradition by being the first World Cup to ever be staged in the winter. And this is only the beginning of the absurdity of choosing Qatar, which everyone found to be. Why Qatar won the World Cup and how the truth about corruption ultimately surfaced. Critics were forced to make educated guesses at the time because no one could actually offer any solid evidence. There was only gossip and no concrete evidence. That was up until a whistleblower stepped out a year later with material that threatened to topple FIFA corrupt enterprise. The whistleblower, who was a part of Qatar's World Cup bid team, alleged that two influential persons on the FIFA Executive Committee had accepted payments from Qatar totaling $1.5 million. They agreed to vote for Qatar to win the contract in exchange for this cash. Simply put, the charges were unbelievable, and there were additional calls to overturn the 2022 decision, which increased public fury. But strangely, just 2 months later, the whistleblower retracted every assertion she had made out of the blue. As a result, the entire debate became clouded and impossible to determine what was happening, and as a result of this, it was once more largely ignored. Even when the same whistleblower disclosed 3 years later that Qatar had pressured and coerced her into retracting the claims, it was already too late. For a while, Aviva was able to hide its unscrupulous business dealings. Despite the fact that their reputation was beginning to suffer from the ongoing scandals, as people started to realize how really abhorrent the Qatar World Cup was, it became clear that Qatar was unfit to host since they had to construct every single stadium from scratch, which was a very expensive undertaking. In fact, it's anticipated that Qatar will spend more than $300 billion on the 2022 World Cup, which is a staggering sum, especially when compared to previous World Cups. Given that South Africa's World Cup in 2010 only cost $3.6 billion, Qatar has spent more than 60 times as much. However, it went beyond stadiums. Qatar isn't even a football-playing country. They've never made it to the World Cup. and as you'll see, Qatar's response to this issue would ultimately prove fatal. However, at the time people continued to excuse FIFA because there had never been a World Cup in the Middle East. Perhaps this excuse or another factor led to the lawsuit against FIFA Choice. The charges of corruption against FIFA haven't been sufficiently solidified to support a comprehensive case. Many of them may be partially refuted or disregarded. That would last until 2012 when the FIFA's mask would be removed. To create a study on the various claims of bribery and corruption involving Qatar Choice, U.S. Attorney Michael Garcia was appointed in 2012. Garcia spent 2 years gathering evidence and compiling a case against FIFA. The findings of his reports, which would have brought FIFA to its knees, were completed in 2014, but FIFA only provided a summary. But in reality, his summary was distant from what the report's actual findings were. Rather than criticizing Qatar and Russia, it complimented them in place of claims of corruption in the UK on Australia's problematic portions. Garcia quickly quit after seeing that his work was being exploited against the truth, and it appeared that FIFA would once more dodge punishment. But at this point, everyone was aware that the report had been fabricated and FIFA's standing had further eroded. By this time, everyone was aware that FIFA was dishonest. Nevertheless, the 2022 World Cup took place despite all the corruption. All that was required was for Qatar to complete the stadium projects and open its doors to the rest of the globe. They lack a football infrastructure because they needed to put their $300 billion to use. It was time to start again, and doing so would permanently harm FIFA credibility. She claimed that in order to build these stadiums and do all of these menial jobs, Qatar required a large number of people. In order to get these workers, they turned to immigrants, promising them excellent pay and reliable employment. Millions of people were attracted to Qatar by Qatar, but once they arrived, their passports were seized and they were forced to labor in appalling circumstances for little to no compensation. As a result, 6,500 Morgan workers have died while constructing Qatar's stadium and other facilities. All of this occurred as a result of FIFA corruption, which would also serve as the catalyst for FIFA destruction by 2015 when FIFA House of Cards started to fall into the hands of the deceitful. All of this was made possible by FIFA corruption, which would ultimately lead to FIFA destruction due to the fact that on May 27, 2015, FIFA House of Cards finally started to play tricks. A 164-page criminal investigation, including allegations of bribery, fraud, and money laundering, was made public by the U.S. Department of Justice. 7 of the senior FIFA executives, together with 7 other officials, were accused, and Swiss police swiftly detained all of FIFA executives at their offices. 2 former FIFA vice presidents were among the next people to be charged and taken into custody. The inquiry identified some of them, and one it discovered was alarming. It included specific claims and proof that over the period of several decades, the 7 executives were involved in the providing and receiving of bribes totaling more than $150 million. Executives at FIFA have stuffed their own pockets. These shady merchants were coming to light, and what happened next can only be called a culling. Eventually, FIFA officials entered a guilty plea, paid back tens of millions of dollars in fines, and admitted that Blatter had won re-election. Just a few days before, he had been forced to resign and dismissed as president of FIFA, all of which had taken place under his direction. He wanted FIFA to grow to what it is now, and in doing so, he damaged his own reputation. But, as in a lot of other strong organizations, his own strength shielded him from the accusations. The only thing that really happened to him was that he was made to quit, and practically, the whole senior administration of FIFA did the same. However, because Joseph Blatter held power over several nations, justice was not carried out. Even though he would never really be charged with a crime, the situation wasn't yet ended. Not much of the evidence that surfaced in 2015 was truly related to the Qatar World Cup. We're referring to the FIFA World Cup, which was the most tainted ever. It took 4 years since it was all based on past scandals and bribery. It wasn't until former UEFA president Michael Platini was detained by French authorities in 2019 that people finally recognized how seriously crook the Qatar World Cup was. After a 2-year investigation into bribery in the Qatar World Cup bid, it was discovered that the corruption had permeated all levels of the French government and implicated the president of France directly. The French government entered conversations with Qatari officials who were acquiring important French assets like PSG, according to leaks. All of this was done in exchange for France's government forcing FIFA to vote for Qatar during the country's economic crisis. The public got a brief look at how Qatar had truly manipulated the system in 2020, a year later. Now, though the reality is still hazy, leaked papers show that just weeks before the vote, a Qatari media outlet Al Jazeera made a bid to FIFA for the broadcasting rights to the 2022 World Cup $400 million. But when Qatar won the vote, they also made a covert commitment for an additional $100 million. The government of Qatar contributed an additional $480 million to the agreement as a bonus incentive. When you think this is awful enough, consider that many FIFA stood to make about $1 billion by voting for Qatar. Even in 2021, the FIFA controversies are still going strong. There is no happy conclusion to this, as Swiss banker Julius Baer acknowledged laundering payments received from FIFA and other sports officials totaling more than $36 million. As a result, FIFA reputation has been severely damaged, yet having said that, there is no justice. FIFA continues to have a monopoly, and those responsible simply reimburse a percentage of their illegal profits. The majority of the offenders avoided jail time. In reality, the true criminal activities behind FIFA will never be fully revealed, and Qatar will continue to stage the most contentious World Cup ever. And even if there is a ton of evidence pointing to vote rigging and corruption, FIFA will go about business as usual. The Qatar government is once more exploiting the World Cup as the ideal platform for propaganda, with the only true victim of this whole fiasco being its already poor reputation. It was the mysterious businessman who poisoned the organization from the inside out, causing FIFA now merely be a shell of what it once was, a career puppet being utilized by its corrupt puppet masters. Because at this point, practically everyone is aware of how corrupt FIFA has become over the past decade. Did you enjoy this video? I hope you found the information useful. Please share with your family and friends. And like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And now, over to you.